nicely stated, specifically, he says in 1st Canto, 19th chapter, 16th verse. It's a very nice verse. Tasyeva meghasya paravaresho vyasakta chittasya graheshu abhikshnam nirvedamudo dvijasaparupo yatra prasakto bhajamashu datte. And the translation sums up the mood of a leader. Parikshit Maharaj says, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the controller of both transcendental and mundane worlds. He has so graciously overtaken me in the form of a Brahmana's curse. So Parikshit Maharaj did not see the curse of Shringi Brahmana as anything else. He did not see it as something that will agitate him. Because he tolerated it as seeing it as coming as providential arrangement. The moment a leader accepts things instead of expecting things, when he accepts his congregation as they are and works with them to inspire them, half the battle is won. The moment he creates expectations, then you and I know in expectations in this material world, there is always disappointment. There has never been an expectation in this material world that has ever been met. And there will never be an expectation in this material world that will fully be met. Which brings us to the point of Mother Earth. That is why Prabhupada takes pains in the purport to say that Prithu Maharaj is compared so much to the quality of earth. Mother Earth is trampled upon. She is abused regularly. Nobody thanks her for the shade and everything that she receives. But does she stop all that? No. As leaders, it is sometimes a thankless task because nobody may thank you. Nobody may give you an expression of gratitude. But it doesn't matter. If you expect, it becomes disturbing. If you accept, you become peaceful. And that is why the quality of earth is very great. 11.7.37. That is the exact quality of earth that is given. Bhutai akramyamano api diro dhaivo vasa anugahi tadvidvan na chale margad anvasiksham shite vratam. And what does it mean? A sober person, even when harassed by other living beings, should understand that his aggressors are acting helplessly under the control of the material modes of nature. This is very important for leaders. There will always be harassment from all quarters. There will be deadlines to meet. There will be expectations from devotees. That harassment will continue from the day you were born till the day you die. And if others don't harass you, you will harass other people. It is very natural. It is the nature of the world. But Bhagavatam tells us a sober person understands that even those who are harassing him, they are also acting helplessly under the control of material nature. This is where forgetfulness and forgiveness becomes very helpful. When we understand that devotees and living entities, they try their best, but the challenges of the modes of nature are very strong. Let us be tolerant, because we are also caught in that. Wouldn't we want someone to be tolerant of us? And in that same mood, when we serve devotees, it will be very wonderful. The best personality that comes to mind who tolerated is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. If you remember the episode of Amog Leela, Amog Leela was the son-in-law of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was invited by Bhattacharya to have prasadam at his house. And when Mahaprabhu declined at first, saying that this is food fit for a king, I'm sannyasi, Bhattacharya said, my lord, I know your true nature. You are consuming so much prasadam in Puri. You are being fed all the time in Vrindavan. You are being fed by 16,108 queens in Dwarka. So my lord, you are actually consuming plenty of prasadam. Kindly come to my house and please have some prasadam. And Mahaprabhu said, all right, I will come. So on that day, he comes to have prasadam. But Bhattacharya's son-in-law, Amog Leela, he's a fault finder. Not very tolerant, not very forgetful, not very forgiving, and not very kind. And he was just looking for some fault in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The moment Mahaprabhu sat down to have the array of dishes that were in front of him, I don't want to quote the dishes that were put there, because then we will think of prasadam and we will forget to hear the class, because it's half the chapter anyway. But at that point of time, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya hears his son-in-law Amog Leela saying very loudly, "Is this person befitting to be a sannyasi?" Such an insult. Bhattacharya comes with a stick to hit Amog Leela, but he runs away. The second time, Amog Leela comes in and says something to that same effect. And at that point, he runs away again. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya falls at the lotus feet of Mahaprabhu with tears in his eyes. And he says, "Lord, today I've created such a great offense in calling you to my house and having you insulted in this way." Mahaprabhu's reply is astounding. Mahaprabhu smiles at Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya and tells him, "Amog Leela is a young man. What is his offense? He is right. I am a sannyasi. Should I be sitting down with such a wide range of dishes?" And that was Mahaprabhu's comment. And right after that, Amog Leela contracted cholera and he was dying. And when Mahaprabhu heard it from Gopinath Acharya, he rushes to the hut. And while he is stopped by Amog Leela, don't come in, because I'm infectious. Mahaprabhu walks in, and with his hand he puts it on the heart of Amog Leela and reminds him of his true constitutional position. If Mahaprabhu did not show tolerance, if he did not show kindness, if he did not show forgetfulness and forgiveness, he would not be able to touch the heart of this Amog Leela and purify him to the point where Amog Leela was rid of the illness, stood up and danced ecstatically with the Lord. This simple but deeply significant episode is so important for us to absorb in our day-to-day behavior with all devotees. So we've come to the conclusion, but the start of the ILS. And I believe the theme of the ILS this year is to keep the wheels moving. And actually this term was borrowed by Srila Prabhupada from Indian Railways. And Prabhupada said that, I'm reading what Gopal Bhatta Prabhu actually stated in the website. It's the business of every employee, train driver, fireman or clerk to do their bit so that the wheels don't stop. If the wheels stop, the business stops. A parallel can be drawn. It is the duty of every leader to ensure that this great legacy that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has given us in the Holy Dham today continues. That somehow or another we build our spiritual lives on tolerance. We build our spiritual lives on kindness. We build our spiritual life such that a leader's door is never closed to any living entity, no matter what happens. The leader should be the last recourse for a pained devotee, for an aggrieved devotee. There must always be a door or a window open, because that is the way the wheels will continue. Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Thai Gaura Premanande. Are there reflections, comments? Yes, Prabhu. What happens? Do I take the... Okay. I think Prabhu had put up your hand.
Thank you, Prabhu, for a wonderful class. Probably, to most of us, the most famous verse we remember on tolerance is in Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna tells Arjuna, Matra sparshastu kanteya shitoshna sukadukada. The difficult part of that verse to often understand is tolerating not just dukkha, but sukha. Could you please explain what Krishna is speaking about in terms of pleasure that we must tolerate, and why is that so dangerous that we have to learn to tolerate it?
Very nice point, Prabhuji. Thank you. It is more difficult to tolerate happiness because it is easier to absorb it. It is more difficult to tolerate happiness because it is very difficult to endure it. It has the capacity to sweep our senses away and make us forget Krishna. On the other hand, the difficulties and tragedies and reverses of life, though very painful for a devotee, have an interesting way of bringing us back to the lotus feet of their lordships very quickly. As an example, when I started Krishna consciousness, my mother would know when my exams were coming, because suddenly I would be chanting extra rounds. And when my rounds just dipped because I was happy the exams ended, she knew the exams had ended. And when 2 months later I suddenly picked up on the intensity of chanting, she knew the results were coming. Krishna is so kind that even in the painful situations of material life, he has given this consciousness the mercy to go to Krishna at difficult times, which is very, very much easier. But you're right, Prabhu, the challenge for devotees is when we have a little bit more happiness, we may translate that happiness in such a way that we become separated from Krishna, especially when it has elements of material nature in it. My understanding from experience is that in order to counter this challenge of sukh, it is always important to regularly cultivate the quality of gratitude. When we have gratitude that whatever is coming which appears sweet is not coming on our own endeavor but the mercy of the Lord, then that gratitude should be that we share it in the association of Vaishnavas. And if we can't share that, then it's material. But if we can share it, it will be spiritual. In that way, we can minimize the dangers of sukh. That is my understanding in limited capacity, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Sorry, Prabhu, just one and then, yes.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Everyone's different. How should we utilize this principle in light of serving together in a movement in which we are striving to maintain the highest spiritual standards? Standards simply imply uniformity, yet we're celebrating diversity. So how to reconcile this?
There is a principle in the material world that says a good leader is one who hires those who are more qualified than himself. If as spiritual leaders we can look to the strengths of those devotees who are in our congregations, see how different they are and what they bring to the table, and then encourage them and inspire them to put their efforts in it. Again, my personal experience is the other negative qualities that they may have, that may be disturbing sometimes, will actually reduce automatically. Because in positive energy, everything becomes positive. And in that way, a leader who accepts that there are many others in the congregation who are much more qualified, and my duty is only to facilitate. I become the plate on which all these different sweetmeats and savories and sabjis are going to be, but at least I'm a plate, and I keep them together until they're all consumed. The leader is not agitated, and the devotees become inspired. In that way, Prabhu, we celebrate diversity. We don't condemn it. Otherwise, what happens is the tendency is to either condemn diversity and celebrate unity because it flows with what we want, or to unleash diversity, celebrate it, bring up goodwill among devotees, and you'll find the differences fall. Good example is Prithu Maharaj and Indra. After this chapter, the 100th sacrifice episode starts, and as you all know, Indra was the holder of the 100th sacrifice mantle. And Prithu Maharaj was going to reach there, 99. Indra becomes extremely worried. And he comes in different disguises, in different sannyas orders to steal the sacrificial horse. And after a while, Prithu Maharaj reacts. First he says, I will destroy Indra. Then the Brahmanas say, no, let us do it for you. And then Lord Brahma has to come and say, no, 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 you both should not be doing this, because the aim of the sacrifice is to please Krishna. So when unity in diversity is put on the platform of what are we doing here? We're all here for the common aim of pleasing Krishna. Otherwise, tolerance has no value. Hiranyakashipu tolerated so much in his austerities. I don't think we can ever do it. But what was the aim of that tolerance? Destruction. So when leaders have unity in diversity principles in this way, then when Prithu Maharaj and Indra finally reconciled in the presence of Vishnu, they embraced each other. They recognized that their envy had to be adjusted. That is the purport in 4:20:18. In the 4th canto, 20th chapter, 18th verse, that's the seminal purport where Prabhupada says, when two Vaishnavas have a disagreement, it becomes their duty to adjust the cause of their envy. And this can be done by the Krishna consciousness movement. Is that helpful, Prabhuji? Okay, one last question.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So the translation, I am speaking about it. This King Prithu will be very, very kind to all citizens, even though a poor person may trample over the king's head by violating the rules and regulations, the king. So out of his causeless mercy will be forgetful and forgiving. As a protector of the world, he will be as tolerant as the earth itself. So here itself, this whole translation is out of context, means it is out of spiritual life. So myself is Gaur Kishore Das Swami, disciple of His Divine Grace Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, blessed by him. Myself has got the position in this world as a ruler of this entire earth planet, as a saintly king and Lord Indra of this earth planet. Before this, I got the position of Radha Kunda Mahanta.
Are you
Wait a minute. So, why I am telling this? This translation itself is
Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki.
Wait a minute. No,
Enjoy your ILS. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada Ki.
talking nonsense.